George Washington is often remembered as the face on the $1 bill, or the first president of the United States. But behind the statues and textbook quotes lies a far more complex man. A man who didn't crave power, but took it when his country needed him most. He was not just a general and not just a president. He was the glue that held a fragile revolution together. And what's most surprising, Washington didn't really want to lead. He didn't ask to be a hero. He was reluctant, quiet, almost painfully humble. But that's exactly what made him the kind of leader America needed. So let's dig deeper. This isn't just the story of a founding father. This is the untold truth about the man who built America. Early life, humble beginnings. George Washington was born in 1732 in Westmoreland County, Virginia, into a family that was comfortable, but far from elite. His father was a tobacco planter and died when George was only 11. With limited formal education, just the equivalent of an elementary school level, Washington didn't have the classical training that many of the other founding fathers had. No Ivy League, no university. He wasn't a great writer. His spelling was inconsistent, but he was good at one thing early on: observation. He watched, learned, and imitated the behaviors of successful men around him. As a young man, he worked as a land surveyor, traveling deep into the wild frontiers of Virginia. This gave him something most colonial gentlemen lacked: a first-hand knowledge of the land and the lives of ordinary settlers. And when war broke out between Britain and France in the 1750s, Washington saw an opportunity to rise. He joined the British colonial army and learned, often the hard way, what battle really looked like. He lost, he failed, he made tactical mistakes, but he kept showing up, and people took notice. The reluctant general, revolution calls. Fast forward to 1775. The colonies are boiling with tension. The battles of Lexington and Concord have already broken out. The Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia to decide what to do next. They need someone to lead their army, someone respected by the colonies, especially the powerful South. They choose Washington. Why? Because he's tall, because he's dignified, because he's calm under pressure, and crucially, because he's from Virginia, not Massachusetts. Appointing a Virginian helped unify the colonies. Washington didn't jump at the chance. He accepted the role solemnly, refusing a salary. He would only ask for his expenses to be reimbursed. That already tells you something about his character. He went on to lead a ragtag, underfunded, poorly trained army against the most powerful military in the world, the British Empire. He lost more battles than he won. His troops froze at Valley Forge. They ran out of food. Morale was low. But Washington had one skill above all: endurance. He kept his army together, even when it looked like the war was already lost. And when victory finally came at Yorktown, Washington didn't take a victory lap. He quietly handed in his command and went home. That act stunned the world. When generals win revolutions, they usually grab power. Washington didn't. He gave it back to the people. King George III supposedly said, if he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world. The presidency, power handled carefully. But America wasn't done with him. After the war, the Articles of Confederation had left the country weak and divided. A constitutional convention was called in 1787, and again, Washington was the calming presence everyone trusted. When it came time to choose the first president, there was no contest. Washington was elected unanimously, not once but twice. To this day, he remains the only president ever unanimously elected by the Electoral College. But Washington didn't rule like a king. He intentionally rejected any royal trappings. Instead of Your Excellency, he preferred the simple title, Mr. President. He knew every move he made would set a precedent, so he walked a careful line, balancing power but never abusing it. He created the first cabinet, including people who didn't always agree, like Jefferson and Hamilton. And instead of pushing laws through Congress, he respected its independence. When the Whiskey Rebellion broke out, Washington personally rode at the head of a militia to peacefully put it down. His message was clear: this new nation had laws, and those laws mattered. His private struggles, the human side. Here's the part that rarely makes it into textbooks. Washington was often filled with doubt. He worried constantly about doing. He hated public speaking. His dentures hurt. He longed for privacy. At Mount Vernon, his Virginia plantation, he tried to live a quiet life, tending to his crops, entertaining guests, and managing the land. But his wealth came, in part, from enslaved labor. And this is a painful but essential part of the truth. Washington owned over 100 enslaved people. He struggled with the morality of slavery, eventually deciding in his will to free the people he enslaved upon his death. It was a rare move among his peers, but it came too late to change much in his lifetime. Why he mattered more than a symbol. Washington is often treated like a symbol, a statue, a name on a city or a monument. But that overlooks his greatest contribution, restraint. At every point when he could have clung to power, he let it go. When other nations expected tyranny, he showed democracy. When others demanded revenge, he modeled unity. He didn't draft the Constitution. He didn't write philosophical treatises like Jefferson or Madison. But he did something they didn't. He lived those values. He put them into action. By the time he stepped down after 2 terms, another act of voluntary restraint, he once again stunned the world. He could have ruled for life. Instead, he walked away, peacefully, quietly, proudly. He returned to Mount Vernon and never sought power again. His death and legacy. George Washington died in 1799 after falling ill from a throat infection. The news rocked the nation. Church bells rang. Citizens wept. Even his political rivals praised him. He was mourned like royalty, but remembered as a citizen, a servant of the people. Today, we still tell stories about Washington and the cherry tree. We see his name on schools, streets, and the Capitol itself. But the real truth is more powerful than the myth. He wasn't just the first president. He was the first leader in modern history to walk away from power when he didn't have to. And that changed everything. Why he still matters. So why does George Washington still matter in 2025? Because in a world where power is often abused, Washington showed us what leadership looks like when it's guided by principle. Because in a time of division and uncertainty, he held a fragile country together with quiet strength. Because he reminded us that true greatness isn't about ego, it's about service. He was far from perfect, but his humility, discipline, and dedication laid the foundation for everything that followed. The Constitution, the presidency, even the peaceful transfer of power, all of it started with him. That's not just history, that's legacy.